You didn't have to get so angry about it. It was just a misunderstanding about the child.
I was beyond angry and appalled that my husband could seriously say such a thing. I wondered how I could make him understand. As I was contemplating my response, I heard a voice from the seat behind us. "Hey, can you believe that? This guy is the worst. I don't even want to breathe the same air as him." As I turned around, I saw a young couple. My husband, realizing they were talking about him, stood up. The girl stared straight at him and began to speak again. "My name is Linda. I'm a 28-year-old homemaker. This is the 3rd year of my marriage to my husband, Robert. Even after 2 years of marriage, I couldn't get pregnant, but around the time we were discussing visiting a gynecologist next month, I found out that we were pregnant. During my pregnancy, my husband Robert took excessive care of me. Not only did he carry heavy things for me, but he also accompanied me whenever I went out. He read parenting magazines, suggesting which diapers were best and promised to take care of any nighttime crying. My mother-in-law was also very kind. 2 years ago, when my mother passed away, she worried about me because I chose not to go back to my hometown, so she also tried to help me in any way she could. I was filled with happiness, thinking that they would love our child even more once he or she was born. However, reality would betray my expectations. The day I went into labor, I contacted Robert immediately since he was at work. Even though he claimed to be in a slow season, he didn't respond at all. This was the first time something like this had happened, so I endured the pain, filled with anxiety. About 6 hours later, I gave birth to a baby girl, but there was still no contact from Robert, and I was worried that he might have been in an accident. I told a nurse about this and she contacted my mother-in-law for me. She said she would come right away, so I was anxiously waiting. My mother-in-law arrived at the hospital room within about 20 minutes, and behind her was Robert, whom we hadn't been able to reach. I remembered having contacted him, but he was supposed to come the next day. Confused, I asked Robert, "Robert, where have you been? Didn't you see my messages? You know, I wanted you to be present at the birth. I was worried you might have had an accident." Robert frowned at my words and looked away as if he was uncomfortable. Unable to understand his attitude, I could only tilt my head in confusion. Seeing Robert not even looking at our child sleeping peacefully beside me, I started to feel anxious. Then, my mother-in-law, glaring at me, shouted out, "How dare you deceive us all this time?" "Huh? Deceive? What are you talking about, Mom?" My mother-in-law's face turned red. Robert, as always, frowned and looked away. "My son Robert is sterile. This baby is not his. You had an affair and now you're trying to make Robert raise that child?" "What? Wait a minute, sterile? Just to be clear, I never cheated on my husband, so our daughter is truly, without a doubt, his child."
"You know, I would have been happy with just the 2 of us," he said, struggling to get the words out. "But you wanted a child. I thought that if I could accept that child, everything would be all right. But in the end, I just couldn't stand it."
My husband, he poured out his heart like that. On hearing this, my mother-in-law became even more incensed. "How dare you betray my kind-hearted son? He confessed everything to me yesterday. You're getting a divorce and we will be seeking alimony." Wait, a divorce? Hold on. This must be a mistake. I didn't cheat. If need be, I'm willing to have a DNA test done on our daughter and Robert. Before I could finish, the hospital room door burst open with a loud bang. Startled, I turned to see my father standing there. He stormed over to me and, in a fit of rage, slapped me across the face. "You disgrace! You betrayed your husband by having an affair. I'm cutting all ties with you, and you are not getting any inheritance." "Ouch! Dad, wait! I didn't cheat." But he cut me off, slapping me again. The pain in my cheek throbbed, and tears welled up in my eyes. My mother-in-law, my husband, and now my father, they all scorned me. I desperately denied the accusations, but no one believed me. Just as I was about to utter the word divorce, the door swung open again. "Excuse me," a nurse entered the room. "I'm sorry, but we asked for quiet in the hospital. I don't know the circumstances, but new mothers are quite sensitive. This could lead to postpartum depression, so please refrain from discussing such matters." "What are you talking about barging in here like that? This has nothing to do with postpartum depression." To my mother-in-law's protest, the nurse smiled and responded, "Well, if anything were to happen because of this, part of our job is to ensure the safety of our patients. I hate to intrude, but I'll have to ask you to leave." My mother-in-law grumbled and left, seemingly overpowered by the nurse's insistence. My husband and father also left the room, and finally tranquility returned. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble." "Don't worry about it. Our job is to protect the mother. Besides, I know for a fact that you, Linda, wouldn't have an affair." The nurse called me by my name, and I looked at her. I must have met her somewhere before, but still not able to place her, she smiled at me. "I have lost a lot of weight since then, so I can understand if you don't recognize me. Remember, we went to high school together. Mary, do you remember?" "Mary? No way! Is it really you?" At the familiar name, I was taken aback. Mary was a friend from high school, a quiet and gentle girl. Before she joined our friend group, she was teased about her figure by some other girls. I don't remember how it happened, but she started spending time with us. We shared a love for cartoons and comics, talking about it every day. However, I never would have guessed that the slender, beautiful woman in front of me was the same person. "I can't believe it. You moved away so suddenly and we lost contact. I have been worried." "I'm sorry, my parents divorced and I had to cancel my cell phone. My mom's family is from here, so I moved hastily." "I see. I'm glad you seem to be doing well. Thanks for everything earlier. When they said those things to me, I didn't know what to do." Mary hugged me and stroked my head. It felt comforting, just like when my mother, who passed away 2 years ago, used to do. "I'll explain to the ward nurses to make sure they can visit. Right now, you need to rest your exhausted body after giving birth. It's important for the baby too, right?" I sighed in relief at Mary's words. "But I have nowhere else to go after I'm discharged from the hospital, except for that house." Seeing my gloomy face, Mary made a proposal. "Actually, I live still at my mom's old house. We have extra rooms. Would you like to come stay with us?" "What? At your house?" I was surprised and raised my voice. Mary was looking at me seriously. "That's right. The current situation isn't good for you or your daughter. And if you go back, you'll be blamed by those people and your dad. Divorce is inevitable anyway, so let's fight this together. I can't stand to see you suffer like this." Tears welled up in Mary's eyes. I decided to rely on her, who was seriously considering me and my daughter. I got permission from the doctor and left the hospital half a day early. I told my husband that I would be discharged in the evening, but to be safe, I left from the back entrance and went to Mary's house. "You made it. Here's your room. Please, take it easy for at least a month while you recover." Mary's mother showed me to the room. The room was filled with a baby bed and all kinds of baby gear. "Let us know if there is anything you need." I cried tears of gratitude for Mary's kindness. After I finished breastfeeding and had a break, Mary's mother started to talk. "I have a hunch about this. It's hard to say, but I think your husband is probably cheating. My ex-husband was thinking the same thing back then." Hearing Mary's mother's words, it felt like I had been hit over the head with a blunt object. But at the same time, I couldn't help but agree, because recently, there were many times when I couldn't contact my husband during the day. He works at my father-in-law's company doing sales. It's not a large company, so they were flexible, allowing him to work from home outside of client meetings when I had morning sickness and giving him time off for every prenatal checkup. However, he started telling me he was busy about 6 months ago, and I often went to the checkups alone. Even when I sent him a shopping list during the day, He often didn't read it. I didn't suspect him of cheating because he said he was busy and he was home every night, except when we were invited to my in-laws' house. A private investigator who helped me back then is my relative. He can introduce a lawyer as well. If nothing comes out of the investigation, that's good. But don't you want to know why he suddenly said those things? I nodded at her words. Mary's mother immediately contacted that person and they started the investigation the next day. About 2 weeks later, the information that the detective brought was just as Mary's mother had said. I can't believe this is happening. I burst into tears and Mary held me until I calmed down. The woman my husband cheated on me with was in her early 20s. She seemed to have joined my father-in-law's company half a year ago. She was a stunning beauty and all the men in the office were head over heels for her. Apparently, my husband was no exception. He ended up driving her home from a company-held summer party when she had too much to drink, and that's when their physical relationship started. After that, they would say they were going out for business in a day, but they would be at a hotel or her place doing God knows what. And what surprised me the most was that my mother-in-law knew about this woman and even welcomed her, apparently. She had been hoping for a granddaughter and dreamed of beautiful children when she found out the mistress was young and beautiful. She encouraged them to go on dates during work hours and actively cooperated. She even helped cover for him when he claimed to be on business trips and was actually vacationing or staying overnight with the other woman. The woman was even apparently going to a gynecologist to work on getting pregnant. It was dizzying. What a despicable bunch. Linda did nothing wrong. Mary was trembling with rage next to me, stunned. Linda, what do you want to do? Do you still want to continue this marriage after all this? No, I have woken up to reality. I am going to get him to pay proper damages. That's right. That's the way to go. We are with you all the way. Don't hold back when you're hurting. Just let it all out. I'll call the attorney now. Let's get ready. Mary's mother briskly began making preparations. The attorney went through the documents as soon as he arrived. This is unbelievable. Let's start with a DNA test. We'll clearly demonstrate that you have done nothing wrong. I nodded in agreement. We incorporated a DNA test into the divorce conditions along with providing proof. The response from my husband was a resounding no. It's obvious if they tested, it would prove his blood relationship with the child. His side was trying to avoid testing, but the attorney didn't relent and the test was performed. It was officially recognized that the child was his, and then I demanded a divorce and damages. Of course, I also claimed damages from the mistress. The mistress had only told her parents she was planning to marry the president's son. When they found out he was already married, they were absolutely livid. After they covered her share of the damages, they apparently threw her into a relative's motel. My husband, the moment the other woman was gone, refused to divorce. I was fooled. The only one I really love is you. When he said such clinched lines over the phone, I thought I was going to throw up. The attorney did his best, but the divorce discussions weren't progressing. So as a last resort, we decided to have a meeting with my husband and the attorney. The meeting could have been at the attorney's office, but to avoid any violent outbreaks, we decided on a diner a little ways away from where we live. The moment my husband saw my face, he broke down in tears. It was clear performance and I showed my disgust, but he was too absorbed in his own crying to notice. Now, about the divorce, why the hell is a stranger pushing the conversation forward? My husband's scream echoed through the diner. Well, he is my lawyer, isn't he? Don't yell, you're causing a scene in the restaurant. At my words, my husband looked dumbfounded for a moment but quickly broke into a laugh. Come on, we aren't divorcing, so why need a lawyer? Send him home and let's talk about our future, just the two of us. Come on, stop being stubborn and come back home. Your mother is waiting too. It was just a misunderstanding about the kid. You don't have to get so upset, do you? I was beyond angry at my husband, who could say such things in earnest. I wondered how I could make him understand. I was thinking of a reply when, Hey, can you believe it? That guy? He's the worst. I don't want to breathe the same air as him. I turned towards the voice coming from the seat behind us, and there was a young couple. Realizing that they were talking about him, my husband stood up, but the girl just looked at him straight in the eye and said, "How can such a jerk really exist? Hey, promise you won't turn out like him."
Of course, he is not only a failed man but a failed human being too.
Being ridiculed by someone much younger, my husband's face turned red with anger.
What could you kids possibly know? Adults have their own circumstances. Stay quiet.
How can you deny your wife and child? What kind of circumstances can justify that? I don't understand and I don't want to. The high school girl snapped back at him, and my husband was left speechless. I handed my husband the divorce papers and documents detailing alimony and child support. There is no point talking to you anymore. If you won't sign this here, shall we meet in court?
Court? Wait a minute. Don't talk like that. If this goes to court, it could affect my father's company's reputation.
The company of the man I'm divorcing is no longer of my concern. Hearing my words, my husband sank to the ground. He signed the papers in front of him and stumbled out of the restaurant. Afterwards, I submitted the divorce papers and was granted a divorce. I received a lump sum for child support and alimony, which helped cover my immediate expenses. As I was looking for a rental using that money, I was stopped by Mary. Mary confessed that she could not have children and did not have a desire to get married, but she loved children and wanted to at least witness their birth, so she became an OBGYN nurse. I know it's presumptuous request, but I would like to raise a child with you. Can I help you until you're settled in your life? I was very grateful for Mary's offer and gladly accepted. While my child was small, I decided to live at Mary's place. When I asked her why she helped me, she told me that I had protected her when she was teased a long time ago. When I said I didn't remember that, Mary laughed and said that was the good part about me. My father, who had made a nonsensical excuse when he learned the truth, was promptly cut off. About 2 months later, he sprained his ankle falling down some stairs. He called me asking to take care of him because he couldn't move, but I hung up after saying, "We have cut ties." Although parenting was overwhelming, I decided to live my life to the fullest while protecting my daughter.